Welcome to Rice TVX. On today's Rice Report, I am joined by the founder and CEO of quantumeconomics.io, Mati Greenspan, who is an investor and advisor, and he specializes in fintech research and analysis. But before we get into it, if this just happens to be your first time ever watching any of my videos, I do encourage you to check out and explore my channel. Make sure you're subscribed, smash that like button, and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with my videos as they come out. Be sure you're following me on odyssey.com, where I have backups of all of my videos and post up extra content. This is where you know you can find me just in case something ever happens to my YouTube channel. I would also like to encourage everyone to check out my Patreon channel. I have lots of free videos there, but if you decide to become a patron, you would get early access to videos, exclusive content, and it's a way to support the channel directly. Check out Rice Radio. If you want some Rice on the go, we have select episodes from Rice TVX featured on Rice Radio, hosted on Anchor.fm, and available on every major podcasting platform. Make sure you're taking advantage of my partnership with Money Metals Exchange. Get your free half ounce of silver. All you need to do is go to moneymetals.com, be a first-time buyer, purchase $100 or more, and be sure you use the promo code RICE, R-I-C-E. You get that free half ounce of silver, and it's an additional way to support the channel as well. I will include links down below for everything I just mentioned, as well as everything we talk about on today's show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me on today's show is Mati Greenspan. He is involved in financial research and analysis. He's an investor, an advisor, an author. He's also a father of three, and he is the founder and the CEO of quantumeconomics.io. Mati, I appreciate you coming on the show today. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for the awesome introduction.
Oh, no problem, man. You kind of made it real easy because I got most all that right just straight from your Twitter account, which I'm going to be doing a screen share with a couple different things. So everything that we talk about on today's video, I'll have linked down below for everybody as well. But yeah, I've been really looking forward to talking to you, man, because I really respect a lot of your work when it comes to research and analysis and when it deals with economics. And we're at a very not only interesting, but very pivotal point in history, I believe, when it comes to finances and economics. So I'd kind of like to get your overall thoughts on like where we are and what you think is going to happen in the short and mid to long term.
Sure. So I think the underlying fundamentals of all markets right now for the last 10 years has been quantitative easing and money injections directly from the world's central banks. From the point of the great financial crisis in 2008 and all the way up until the pandemic of March 2020, they probably pumped about $20 to $25 trillion into their own balance sheets, which of course gets inflated by fractional reserve banking 10 to, in some cases, 100 times. And a lot of that's no doubt gone into the world of cryptocurrencies and benefited innovation across the board in fintech and many other areas, renewable energy and those type of things. Since the pandemic, obviously, a lot of things have changed, and now it's not just the central banks who are pumping money in. Now it's the governments as well, funding projects that they basically expanding the government, and in some cases actually giving money directly to the people themselves, which we can complain about, but all of those type of things make for an extremely bullish financial market. Financial assets tend to do very well, and we're in the midst of that right now. So very fortunate time to be an investor.
It is, but I think too you got to know what you're doing, because if you don't, a lot of this, I feel like the bottom can kind of crumble and just everything could topple over at really any point. I mean, we just from the Federal Reserve perspective, it's roughly 24% of the money supply was put into digits or printed up in 2020. And now you have all the different mainstream news outlets talking about inflation. And the Federal Reserve came out several months ago saying they were going to let inflation kind of go wild, which wasn't necessarily, I don't believe they're choosing. It was obviously a result of the consequences of their money printing. How much worse, or how bad and worse do you think things are going to get when it comes to inflation? And do you think we can get to a hyperinflation standpoint?
That's a good question. And obviously, nobody knows the future. Nobody can say with any absolute certainty what's going to happen.
Well, I just want to get your educated perspective. Obviously, it's not, I'm not taking this as a definitive, but just trying to gather as many different perspectives as I possibly can so that the viewers can make educated choices based off what they're gathering from all the different people like yourself.
Yeah. I think that the way that economists are starting to think about inflation has become very multifaceted and very dynamic. We used to think about inflation as being a binary. There's inflation or there's deflation, or maybe somewhere in between. Mm-hmm. But what we're seeing in today's economy after all of this experimental money printing, and of course, extreme growth for the global economy, over the last few decades, that there are many different types of inflation, and is very difficult to measure. So some things are seeing, financial assets, for example, are seeing extreme inflation. Food prices, depending on where you are as well. But other things like technology, for example, are seeing deflation, right? Where telecommunications and devices, the computing power within those devices has come so far so fast that we're paying about the same, maybe a marginal percentage more, but about the same as they were 10, 20 years ago. But the capabilities have increased. So I don't know. I mean, to put a number on it, right? We use the consumer price index, which is I suppose the industry standard for measuring inflation. And the Fed forecasts that it's going to get to maybe 3 or 4%, which is a fair bit more than now.
Right.
But they believe, obviously, that it's going to get under control at some point. The problem is that you'll never know when they've pushed it to the limit until after the limit has actually been reached. You can only say in retrospect, "Oh, that was the limit. We just passed it."
Yeah,
and then it's too late.
No, that totally makes sense. I was really kind of thinking more in a little bit of some of the things I was that maybe you wanted to ask this is that you have companies like Procter and Gamble, Coca-Cola, and a lot of other major companies that are saying that they're not going to take a hit with any of this. They're going to be raising their prices, and then we're seeing reduction in how much of the actual product is inside of a package, kind of like the shrinkflation people call it. And I wasn't sure how this was going to topple over. I've been hearing a lot of concern about it affecting the energy market, and that's where we're going to see a lot of the inflation. So I just really wasn't sure how, from your perspective, how you thought it would affect everything. Because I think
a bit of shrinkflation might be beneficial in the United States these days.
You're definitely not wrong about that. Our nation has gotten really overweight, lazy, and entitled.
It's the portion sizes. I mean, people just feel obligated to finish the portion.
You get to live a totally different life being in Israel. I guess before we get too deep into this too, with let's talk real quick, and I'll do a screen share with quantumeconomics.io. Can you explain to everybody who's unfamiliar with what you guys do, like what is quantum economics and how you can help individuals?
Yeah, I mean, quantum economics is a vehicle for um, kind of delivering financial analysis, strategic advisory, and money management services. Um, for people who are not familiar with the market, or even those who are, I highly recommend to subscribe to the daily newsletter that I'm writing. Um, it's growing extremely rapidly, and some days we have even 50% open rate, because people are enjoying it, and I appreciate everybody who's reading it, and people always I like it when people reply and tell me what they thought about it. Maybe they agreed or disagreed, or have additional insight, and that's how I learn for the most part.
Okay. That's very cool. I didn't actually think to ever respond to any of those, so maybe I'll do that one time because I just figured it went back to like some spam email or some automated system or something to that effect.
Not at all.
Now, you guys aren't limited, obviously, to just cryptocurrencies. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we have 20 analysts on our team, and no doubt we have a strong presence in the cryptocurrency world. You'll see on the About Us page all the members of our team, and some of them you probably recognize, you may even know.
Yeah.
Like Charles Bovert, Luke Kerman.
Rachel is somebody that I know. She works with
Yeah.
Cointelegraph.
Yeah, Rachel's awesome.
What I found to be interesting when I was looking through this, and I was going to ask you, is Marin Altman, the astrology analyst. So
Correct.
there's some people that are involved in content creators that have YouTube channels that talk about cryptocurrencies, and they get into an area that they call woo-woo. and they're dealing with like tarot card readers,
Sure.
various different psychics and stuff like that. There was a psychic, I failed to know her name offhand, and I apologize, but she was telling these individuals about theta like 2.5, 3 years ago, saying it was going to end up being a big thing and that it was just going to be a very successful project because who all was involved. And at the time, nobody really had known anything about it. One of those individuals is Bix Weir from Road to Ruta. I don't know if you ever watch any of his stuff, but so what is the deal with an astrology analyst being involved with quantum economics? I'm just curious from your perspective.
Sure. So, I mean, I think Marin is an extremely valuable contribution to the team. I think that rather than woo-woo, I think she's more into waifu. Just for your knowledge.
Waifu?
Yeah, waifu. Okay. I think that's how it's pronounced. Some anime thing.
Okay.
But we saw Marin in an article by Reuters, and I wrote about it in my daily newsletter, and my team thought she seemed pretty cool. And so we invited her for a talk, and so now she's part of our team.
Now, I don't mean to single her out, but if
that's usually how it happens.
If you look at everything logically, it's the one thing that doesn't quite fit the equation. Not as far as exteriorly, because everybody comes from like.
So let me put it into place for you, Chris.
Please.
Everybody on our team brings a unique perspective and a unique set of knowledge that I do not have. Every single person on this team.
Well said.
And obviously, I mean, I'm not an astrologer. I don't know much about astrology. But I do know that astrology has been around a lot longer than technical analysis. And there are a lot more people around the world who believe in astrology than believe in technical analysis, which is a particular science or art that I've dedicated a good portion of my life to understanding. So,
I'm digging it.
Yeah, and we do a lot of work with the media, and Marin obviously has a knack for dealing with the media, as she found out. And of course, we can do a lot of great things together.
I have to meet this lady now. Now that we're talking all about it, not to diminish anybody else from the team at all, but I am fascinated because I hear lots of things about billionaires have astrologers. I don't know if you ever heard of that before. But I know that there's been a lot of things going on with astrology, and it intertwines with a lot of, if not pretty much every different religion, even ancient Hebrew Judaism incorporated astrology. If you go into a lot of the old temples throughout the Middle East, you'll see a lot of the horoscope and oriented things to that effect. I guess that would be kind of getting in that area of the Kabbalah, but I'm not completely knowledgeable in those
Well,
things.
astrology is it's acknowledged by Jewish folklore. But as Jewish people, we don't really dabble in it because we feel that celestial objects don't have any specific power over us, or that perhaps they do, or they can pull us in specific directions, but we have the power to overcome them. And therefore, when you study astrology, rather than studying things that might be a bit more important, you end up perhaps dwelling or strengthening those forces that end up pulling you in those directions. So ignorance in this sense is bliss.
Right.
To put it lightly.
That makes sense. So you're still doing the copy trading for eToro, because you used to do analysis for them, correct?
Yes. So I was the senior market analyst in eToro. I've been in eToro for about 7.5 years before I left in 2019 to found Quantum Economics. But I was did a lot with eToro, and one of the first things I did when I left was to open the account, because it was so natural. I mean, obviously, I know their system very well, and of course have personal connections within the company who I feel are like family. So I mean, it was obviously like easy, and my goal for this year was to outpace Bitcoin, to outperform, and so far we're on track for that. Just because of the the alt season that's happening now.
Yeah, and I do want to get into crypto here in just a few. I did want to ask you about what I'm calling a disconnect from reality, where we're seeing high numbers of unemployment, even record numbers of unemployment, while we're still sitting hitting all-time highs and setting records on the stock markets.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that, and how long can this really go on?
Yeah, so there was a debate in the beginning of the coronavirus, and especially on financial television and stuff like that, about what shape the recovery might take. Right? Yeah. Would it be like a V? You remember this debate? Yeah. Would it be a V? Yes. Yeah. Or would it be a W, like false recovery and then eventual V? I think they settled on the Nike swoosh. Should be like whoosh. Right?
Yeah, a lot of people were just guessing, obviously, because nobody knows really where we're at.
So in retrospect, we can say quite definitively that the recovery has been K-shaped. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And the wealth gap has accelerated by probably one of the fastest paces in history. Not that if we look at it on any long-term, 100-year time cycle, I mean, it's even registering right now. I mean, obviously, you've had the feudal system, which, I mean, people just didn't have the ability to get rich. It just doesn't happen, not even,
no, yeah, you couldn't.
So at least people these days have the power through technology to change their class, or get educated.
Choose what kind of slave they want to be.
Yes, or
I mean,
the
because it's
power
still a
to.
feudal system when it really comes down to it. It's still a hierarchy that rules over the.
No, but you make your choices, honestly, and you can choose to be part of that, or you can choose to live somewhere where you don't have to worry about that stuff. You can go be a monk or something, honestly.
True.
And, these these are always you have these type of options that people 500 years ago might not necessarily have had.
How is this K-shaped recovery affecting places like Israel since you're there? You know, you see it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it, pretty good. I mean, Israel is a leader in technology, and we have been for um, several decades. And obviously, I mean, technology is our number one export, and basically everything technology has performed very well within the pandemic. We were the first nation to have max vaccinations.
Mm-hmm.
So that obviously uh, is very good for the economy, as we can, be more open and stuff like that, and traveling.
Well, since we're mentioning it, since you're there and you talk about the mass vaccinations, before we started recording, you mentioned that you had gotten the pass that's required, or is it required? What's the deal like
Yeah.
with the pass? Because a lot of people are assuming a variety of things without actually knowing, and I'm
So
just kind of curious from your perspective.
officially, it's required whenever you sit at a restaurant or go into a stadium or arena.
Okay.
I mean, you can go into the mall without it, or things like that. Drive around in your car wherever you want. Nobody's going to stop you on the street and ask for it. But to be straight, I mean, I've sat in many restaurants and they've only ever asked me for it one time. So, I mean, I haven't been to any concerts lately, but I assume they'll be checking it at the door,
Right. And I guess if you don't have it, then they just won't let you attend the event.
basically. Yeah. And I mean, it's better to have those events, obviously, and have some people able to access them rather than not have them. I suppose it is a motivational factor to get the vaccine. It wasn't my motivational factor, but I suppose it might be for some.
For you, was it family and things to that effect? Or if you don't mind me asking, if
Yeah,
it's too personal,
actually,
we can just move on.
yeah. Either it's up to you, man. It's your show, honestly.
I just want to make sure I wasn't invading upon your privacy. That was all.
No, not at all, man. Yeah, my mother-in-law is a head nurse in the specific healthcare administration that was administering the vaccines, and I had the opportunity to ask her the questions that I wanted to ask, and I was satisfied with the answers. So I,
Okay.
just
Cool. I
an issue
respect
of
that. Totally.
showing
Because, I
up.
mean, you took the time to do your due diligence, make sure it was something that you felt comfortable with, and you made a decision that you felt was best for you,
Correct.
which I like freedom of choice. So, and that's what you had. And I appreciate you sharing that. So yeah, what I'd like to kind of get into crypto. We're kind of in the midst of a bull run.
Yeah.
Bitcoin and
A
altcoins,
mighty
just
bull,
crypto.
a mighty bull run.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of get your thoughts on, maybe even time frames for top of the markets for Bitcoin, for altcoins, price predictions specifically for like Bitcoin, Ethereum. We could take them in strides, but top of the market, when do you think we're going to see all-time highs, and what do you think all-time highs will be with Bitcoin?
Why does everybody keep asking that lately?
Because it
I
just
don't
seems to
get
be
it.
that one thing that everybody wants to know. Is Bitcoin going to hit 100K? Is it going to hit that point in this run? Is it going to surpass that in this run? Are we looking at the cycles as being normal cycles and it kind of coming to a halt around September, October? Or are we going to be going into something that we've never seen before with super cycles, possibly, that um, because of what's going on with the dollar? And are we going to get to a point where we don't even care about the dollar value of the cryptocurrencies? Wouldn't that be great?
It could happen, man. I think it's starting to happen for many people, honestly. For me, I'm about there. Like,
Right.
what can I say? Uh, So yeah, I think, look, I mean, the underlying fundamentals of the market, they haven't changed. I mean, the Fed is still printing money, and they've only accelerated their pace. And now the governments are printing money as well. So it's double barrel shotgun, and that's going to benefit risk assets across the board. And until that changes, I don't think that there will be much change in the direction of the market. And there has to be some sort of a catalyst that tells us, okay, we're going the other way now. And I think that even in the 2018, right, that was a particular period of time of depressed prices within the crypto market, but also within traditional markets, because the Federal Reserve was trying to take back their policy, their loose money policy. So I think that that's kind of the indicator that we'll need to look for. And as we see, I mean, the Fed is standing by and supporting these rises in prices across the board. So we have a market that's able to, because of its size and nature, and growth, is able to harness, multiple times the acceleration than you would get, when you're trading on stocks like Facebook and Apple, who are already, once you have 2.5 billion users, where are you going to go to? I mean, it takes a lot more to move the needle.
Right.
So in these markets, we're seeing a lot more acceleration. You're asking when that's going to stop. I don't have any indication that it's going to stop anytime, and it could happen tomorrow. If something drastic happens or changes in some way,
Right.
things can happen suddenly, but it can also continue along these lines for the next 5 or 10 years.
Well, I mean, you notice that we go in these little cycles where it hits like a little all-time high point, and then it starts to retrace back down. It goes through a little recovery phase, and it seems to last about 2.5, 3 years ish. That's what are we going to see the end of that because of what's going on with the dollar? And then you got that catch 22. It's like when we do hit something like $500,000 Bitcoin or $1 million per Bitcoin, what is the dollar going to be worth at that point? Because that's where I understood John McAfee's argument for the $1 million Bitcoin was he was betting on the dollar to just be worth nothing. And in that sense, look at Zimbabwe. I mean, I think it takes like $10 billion to get a meal at a McDonald's because of the hyperinflation. And then they revalued so many times. So it's
US dollar hyperinflation, I think, would be a very tragic scenario in many cases, and we should certainly not root for it or hope for it. I think that in my mind, it's a very unlikely scenario. The United States has seen periods of high inflation before, and inflation takes all types of shapes, but for a small country, it's easy to get into a feedback loop and into a hyperinflation where the currency is suddenly worth nothing. But for a developed economy, it takes a lot more than that. I don't think we have very many cases of, economies that are in, the top 5 or 10 economies of the world seeing hyperinflation. Their currencies usually can take more of a beating. And even if you get to 10% a year, I mean, there's a difference between that and, Venezuela or Zimbabwe, of 100% or 1,000,000% in a year. I mean, I don't think that's really a very likely scenario for the dollar.
I'm definitely not rooting for that at all. But let's just say the unlikely scenario that the US dollar was to like lose its world reserve status situation.
Oh, I believe it will.
Well, I mean,
it will change over time.
So do you think that in that sense, we're looking at, because we didn't have the threat of China before that we kind of do now. So it's kind of seems like it could go with the Chinese yuan, or it could even go with the IMF's SDR special drawing rights. Do you have any thoughts on that and how that would affect the dollar? Because all those dollars, in a sense, coming back to our nation here would cause a little bit of an issue of because and that's when we're going to see like this real monster of true inflation and potentially that hyperinflation, in my thoughts.
Right. I haven't opened any accounts in renminbi lately, nor have I done any kind of drawing rights with the IMF, to be quite frank. I have done a few Bitcoin transactions lately, so I think that those are cryptocurrencies are a bit easier to use and at this point a bit more widely accessible, especially to people who don't have access to good financial institutions.
Right.
So I think that they'll be used more widely, perhaps in place of the US dollar. But I do hope that this type of things happen more gradually than suddenly, because people have contracts and bills and salaries in US dollars, many millions of people, probably hundreds of millions of people across
I know
the world.
it wouldn't be good.
So we hope that those people have that chance to, kind of switch over at a more gradual pace to something that's maybe more robust.
It's going to be an interesting thing to pay attention to, and I definitely would like to, invite you back on in a couple of months to kind of see where we're at. But are you still sticking with not trying to give any price predictions or any timelines on any Bitcoins or any Ethereums? I mean, it's all good if you don't want to.
K will happen precisely, I don't know, 2022.
Saying 100K, you think it'll be 2022?
120, 130, maybe up to 150 by 2022, yeah.
So the people that are calling for it to happen this year,
so I hope it doesn't, because if it happens this year, that's mania, okay? That we don't need that. The price has now leveled off to where it deserves to be given the adoption on the street, okay? If we get Bitcoin pumping 2x now without the network growing 2x, I think we're just asking for trouble, honestly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Bear in mind, Chris, in 2017, throughout most of the year of 2017, Bitcoin rose from $1,000 to $5,000. Okay, it rose from $5,000 to $20,000 just on the tail end of the year, in the last month of the year, honestly.
Right.
Very quickly.
Yeah, that December run was crazy.
And it spent the rest of 2018 and half of 2019 trying to get back to that $5,000. Right? That was the mania phase, right? Let's take it from 5K to the moon. Let's go to the moon. You got to come back down from the moon, right? How do you get back down from the moon? In that case, it was quite slowly and arduously. Right. So I hope that we can skip the mania phase this time around. I just hope, and I think that one way that we'll skip the mania phase is, that people see the altcoins and they have, another outlet. And in some cases, those altcoins will be able to grow in network and stature and usage in order to justify the prices that they've accumulated. But some of them will not, and some of them, will end up falling on their nose, and that's fine. We need to have that type of washout process eventually.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, are there any altcoins or projects that you firmly believe in, aside from your Bitcoin, your Ethereum, that you find that are going to have use case utility that you would, I'm not saying financial advice or recommendation, but that you're finding to be promising?
Yeah, I mean, so two coins that I'm personally affiliated with are Chiliz and Electroneum, and I'm advising on them, and I believe that both projects have an incredible potential. Lunar Crush, who I'm advising on as well, are going to be launching a token soon. I'm not sure if that's public information just yet, but it is now.
My channel's not huge, so hopefully if it's not supposed to get out, it's not going to be too big of a deal.
I think it'll be fine if it does.
I'm not going to be releasing this until either tomorrow or the next day. We're recording it on the 3rd of May, but it'll come out the Probably the 5th, but it may come out tomorrow.
Don't worry about it, Chris. It's fine.
Cool. All right. Well,
yeah.
Any other projects, or was that pretty much it?
I mean, how long you got, man? I mean, I'm quite diversified with my investments. So, yes, I have plenty of lottery tickets and plenty of blue chips in my portfolio, honestly.
And so people can obviously see some of that by copy trading you. And then if they want to get involved with quantumeconomics.io, they could get a little bit more of that information themselves. Will that be?
Yeah, most definitely.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, if you see on my Toro account is public information, so anybody can log in there and see my portfolio and what I'm holding at any given point. But that's within the coins that are on eToro, and obviously, I'll hold coins that are off.
Yeah, no, it's not a whole lot. At least last time I looked, there wasn't a whole lot of cryptocurrencies on there.
They added Doge today, so I'm proud of them for that.
Very cool.
I mean, if the eToro administration is listening right now, I'll just say I told you so. Like 3 years ago, I told them when Doge was fractions of a penny. I said, hey guys, we should add Doge, and they're like, well, okay. And now they get to it. Honestly, they missed the fucking Elon pump. So,
yeah, well, yeah, maybe it's not over though, man. I mean, you never know how people are when it comes to stuff like that and how markets can be moved real easily. But
oh yeah, I've got myself a bag of leveraged Doge. Don't worry.
Smart. I know there's even some sites that are doing leverage trading with Doge, which I found to be really, really interesting that people have that opportunity. But anyways,
I mean, think about it, right? When I was a kid, if I would have taken like a high interest loan to spot Apple stock, for example, right? It'd be like a billionaire by the age of 20, 25. Right.
True.
So why wouldn't I grab a bag, grab a loan and buy some Doge with it? I mean, I'm not betting the farm here, but honestly.
Yeah, I mean, you could have made some smart moves, especially when you've seen the kind of gains that we've seen. I mean, a lot of cryptocurrencies have had that. And I mean, even now, there's still a lot of incredible opportunities. So I would encourage people that are interested to check out quantumeconomics.io. And I'm going to have links down below for everything we talked about, as well as the Twitter account for Quantum Economics and for Mati's Twitter account as well. But Mati, before we wrap up today's interview, do you have any final thoughts or anything that you want to add before we close up today's video?
I think I need a new set of glasses. These are the same ones I'm wearing in my profile pic.
Let me go back and look. I like the glasses though; they look nice.
Oh, maybe they're not.
This profile pic? No, they look different.
Different. That's right. All right, I'm good.
Okay, cool. That's your final thoughts?
I suppose. I mean, I'm here if you want to ask anything. So,
well, I appreciate you, brother. We definitely got to do this again. Thank you so much for your time. I know it's extremely late on your end, and I appreciate you give me this opportunity to have a chat with you. I've been looking forward to it. So, thanks for making it happen.
Me too.
But again, I'll have links down below. If you can bear with me 1 second, I'm going to close up the video and stop recording. But ladies and gentlemen, make sure you're checking out everything I mentioned in today's video. This is your first time ever watching any of my videos. I do encourage you to explore my channel. Make sure you subscribed, hit that like button, follow me on odyssey.com where I have backups of all my videos and post up extra content. And as always, I encourage you to be the change by practicing change.